And you could only have a place like this really in the country, because something like this would be impossible in the city, right? So it's really a retreat for folks to come and decompress from what's going on in society once we return back to our normalcy that we've been out of for the last couple of months or so.
So welcome to Coffee and Convos. I am Pat Gilmore and I am off camera. I'm here with Kim Wenzel, both from the Leesburg Center for the Arts. And I'm going to have you two introduce yourselves any way which you want to.
I am Chelsey Velilla. I am the gallery manager for the Mount Dora Center for the Arts. I also live here at Arching Oaks, which is what we call our home here, and we'll be talking more about what we do. This is my husband.
Sabastian and Velilla, and I'm the dojo manager, or in Japanese we say dojo cho, for the Kashimon Dojo, which is adjacent to this building that we're in right now.
And dojo is a Japanese word for school, correct? For
school, training hall. Traditionally, it came from the Zen monk building that they trained in, that they actually did the zazen. It's called the dojo. And then they also trained in that facility as well. So that's been carried on traditionally to today. So in a little bit, I suppose we're going to go next door and see what we've done next door.
Yeah, so we're in this amazing room. We'll pan around for it. Where do we begin?
Well, we're in my husband's office, den. We live in Eustis. We're off of Thrill Hill Road. We're on almost 20 acres, just under 20 acres. We have spent the last 3 years perfecting our space here, making it what we wanted it to be. We knew we were going to have to be here in Eustis because we just couldn't find the space in Mount Dora, where we used to live, to shoot arrows properly, to swing swords around, and to do karate the way we need to. So we ended up here.
You said this was this outbuilding, besides being a disaster, was a racquetball?
This was an indoor racquetball court. We were sitting in the back half of it, and we converted it all. So we built the second floor. Above us is my art studio. We have some guest rooms for when students come to stay for martial arts training or arts workshops. And then the dojo space is attached next door, which will take you on a tour. It's got a traditional Japanese tea room just off the side. It's got we call it the sensei's room. It's kind of a little break room when we have visiting dignitaries or visiting senseis. They kind of get a little break. There's some nice couches and a little rest area for them. But it's been 3 years to get this to where we wanted it. The house was abandoned for a year and a half, I think, unlived in. So it definitely needed love, a lot of love, and money,
a lot of money.
And love. And so we've just been pumping money and love for the last 3 years.
That's right. I'd like to say that we burnt out 2-3 ATM machines because all they do is keep running, and just things happen, just popped.
Yeah.
And you keep throwing money at something, and something happens. So.
Yeah. But he had told me years ago that actually, when we met 20 years ago, he had said he had taken karate classes in the past. Then we got into dating and marriage and a child, and martial arts were kind of put on hold for a while. We ended up moving down here to Florida from Virginia to be close to his family, and he got back into karate and then Kyudo and sword, which we call Iaido. And so since then, really in the last, how long has that been? We've been here like 7 years now. 7 years.
Right. 3 years. 3 years actively in the dojo. But I've been working now for quite a while on my own in Japan, and when I lived in Virginia a little bit. But I always wanted to circle back to the roots. Kind of in Japanese it's called enzo. It's a big circle, and when you love something, you always feel like you need to return to that. There was a void there for many, many years because I had done martial arts, Budo, for many years. And then I joined the military. I was fortunate enough to be stationed in Japan. and I was able to do some intense studying while I was there. And then able to, when I got back from the military, I was able to put some of those things into work, into function. But real life takes over again then too, right? So you need to work. Chelsey and I met when we were both teachers for the public school system in Virginia. And but always in my mind, I wanted to build a dojo. I wanted to train, but train faithfully, not just a commercial thing where you need to constantly have a stream of students. As a result, you make decisions that aren't necessarily good for the establishment or for the students. Sometimes you have to promote people to retain them that have no business being promoted, really. So you make a lot of sacrifices in the art that really in the long run you're doing a disservice to the art. So I wanted to have something traditionally built and that was not going to make any real sacrifices in the art and train in the same style and method as they do in Japan. So that was the vision. It's been the vision for many years. And when we were looking for land, for property, when we moved down to Mount Dora, I knew that the house that we were in, we were not going to stay there indefinitely. We were just going to be there for a little bit of time just to get ourselves situated so we can find our forever house. And so we came here, and initially it was a lot of work, and we kind of left. We didn't want to.
No, we passed by this place about 4 times and
Right.
said, no way, this place is too much work. We've renovated 3 houses before. It's exhausting. We're not doing it again.
That's right.
And
so
then we just kept like, oh, but it has the space,
yeah.
and it could
has
have a
beautiful
studio.
trees, and it has it's 20 acres wooded.
What was the final? The final. I want to say the camel, but that's not the right expression. What was the final thing?
Well,
that
it was
made you say
the land.
taking
It was the land. It was they're just not making anymore. Okay.
You can't
So
find it.
yeah, you just can't find it. Particularly in Florida. Florida tends to have land, but it's stripped. It just a lot of grass. You'll have 5 acres of grass with one single tree in the middle. Which is kind of lonely. Whereas this property had a lot of old, mature live oaks, have been here a long time, and so those trees were calling us. And so after a while, after coming here on the 3rd time, we decided, well, the property needs TLC. It needs love, it needs attention. The trees are calling us, as odd as that might sound, right? But, and then I wasn't quite sure what to do with this space because in my mind I had envisioned the dojo on another part of the acreage, separate from the house, not just 50 feet from the house. But then I said, you know what? I think we could do this. I think we could convert this. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, but we could make it happen. So we have, and you'll see.
And we named the place Arching Oaks because of the trees. And you stand in certain places along the property, and they just make these gateways and tunnels that you can walk through. It's really beautiful. We have formed a nonprofit called Arching Oaks Inc. Incorporated to promote the study of traditional Japanese martial arts and the fine arts and crafts of Japan. So a lot of the events that we do here, that is the focus, is to keep that traditional aspect going.
And a lot of the arts that are dying. Japan right now is upside down in society. In fact, the population is dying. It's a coffin. Literally, the statistician called it a coffin diagram because of the nature of the population, being that it's a lot of older folks and not enough folks being born, and so you have this upside down triangle. And so, in fact, I have several friends who are married in Japan, no children. And that's just the society, what's happening now. Also, that most of the kids, they don't want anything to do with their grandparents' tradition. Even here in the United States, right? They'll rather throw out a beautiful piece of oak, right, and get the plywood thing at Walmart, right? Whereas, you have this beautiful, well-made piece of furniture because that's old and that's not cool or what have you, and they don't really think beyond the superficial. So that's what's also happening in Japan. They don't want to study the arts that their grandparents did. That took a long time to make into this wonderfully efficient and effective art that was brought through the Edo area. So the arts, the Japanese martial arts, which we call Budo, of course, was used throughout the centuries. And when the Tokugawa shogunate took over in the 1600s, it was a time of relative peace in Japan. So you had this period between 1600 and 1868 when the Americans, there was influence. The Japanese markets opened up, but the society was closed for those 260 some odd years. So you had a time of relative peace, but you still had a warrior society. So what did you do? What did warriors do? What did samurai do during this period? They still had to practice, right? Mm-hmm. So, and they were still a militaristic society. It was led by a feudal lord, a shogun. The generalissimo is actually what the term would be. So during this time, they refined the arts. Every generation refined it, made it more effective, made it more efficient. And now it came to a point of such extreme, how do you call it, refinement, or I guess, or raffinity. I don't know if that's even raffinity.
That's a new one.
That's not. Edit that. Such refinement that that's something really beautiful. So it's a beautiful art to watch, but it's also effective in doing it. So, and that's why we're here today. So the dojo is there to just continue those traditional Japanese arts, but also not just the martial arts, but tea ceremony, kodo, which is incense smelling, the first aromatherapy, really. We have a lady from Orlando who does kumihimo, who does traditional weaving.
Braid
weaving. We have a guy coming down who comes up from Miami to teach us tea ceremony.
Zen seminar?
Yes, we have several folks. We have two sensei right now who teaches traditional Zen meditation. One person from New York comes down. His name is Virushin Sensei. He was a former abbot of Zen Mountain Monastery in New York. He's a former psychiatrist. So the people that come are subject matter experts in their field who are going to help further the aim of the dojo.
Fantastic. I want to live here.
We have room.
We have room upstairs.
We have space, yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned to me, you do Airbnb, or?
We do. We have 3 student guest rooms upstairs above this space and adjacent to the art studio. They're listed on Airbnb. If you look up Eustis,
yes.
And I forget what our tagline is for our place.
Yes.
You'll find guest rooms.
Under the arching oaks.
Yeah. So they're very basic but comfortable accommodations. Works out really well when we have big martial arts seminar weekends. A lot of students come from all over the country. And so, they're available throughout the year. We have it listed year-round. It's a great place for artists to come and stay because my studio space is available to them if they want to use my table, my area. But then you've got 20 acres to roam for inspiration. So we've got a beautiful pond with a dock and a pier and a little boat that they can take out. And so it's a nice place. It's a little retreat in Eustis, Florida. Little getaway.
And you could only have a place like this really in the country, because something like this would be impossible in the city, right? Yeah. So it's really a retreat for folks to come and decompress from what's going on in society once we return back to our normalcy that we've been out of for the last couple months or so, because what's happening globally. But it definitely is somewhere that if you want to decompress and you want complete submersion in your discipline, then this would be somewhere you want to come.
Great. Let's take a walk.
Yeah,
sure.
Go see it. Awesome.
So this is my creative space, also shared with
whatever events we have going on. We did the braid weaving, traditional Japanese braid weaving was up here. We've done bento box cooking up here with little hot plates and oh, it's so much fun. We've also done Zen seminar meditation sessions up here. We dim the lights, we put our cushions around. I've got a little stack here, and we use it for a very meditative space. So
that looks like something I can do.
So I should spend more time in that chair, and I don't. Lots of my art books. You'll see some of my work around. I do a lot of mixed media, and I also work in journals. So these are some beeswax collage. I had to cancel my workshop, but I will reschedule a beeswax.
So these are our sashimono. These flags represent the three styles that are practiced here. Last night we had karate class, Shotokan, and that's what this says. It says Shotokan Karate Do. So we display the flag of the art that we're practicing that day. Tonight is going to be the Toyamaru Sashimono, which we'll be displaying prominently. Okay, come on into the dojo. All right, so this is our changing room. When the students come, they'll change behind this door. There's your typical changing room things in there that they'll need. And we're here where all the students will then take off their shoes and then enter the dojo space. Bullet nose tip here and no feathers. And so this is what's meant to practice, and when they fire, it'll go into the makiwara.
So it never has any feathers? No feathers?
No, this is a training arrow. This is strictly for training for the new students who come in who want to take archery, learn the traditional Japanese art of archery. But also, seniors could also use this as well. If there's a bad shooting day, it's too windy, it's rainy outside, or if you just want to warm up, loosen up the muscles, then you can shoot into here before going outside, out in the field. And this over here is karate makiwara. So these are, again, judo makiwara, karate makiwara, in the traditional style. Students would punch into this, kick here, or vice versa. That's right. That's right. So this is the way you build a muscle tone and feel what it is to actually impact something. So it's not just air karate, right? You're going to have to actually feel the impact of the technique. So we spoke briefly about karate and we spoke briefly about judo. Just wanted to talk quickly about before we spoke about cutting. So this is what we cut with, what we use to cut. And this is the tatami. This is what we normally roll on the ground. This is a 45-degree cut, and this is where the ideal cut would come in. Okay, to test for black belt and so on, you would have to get a nice 45-degree cut, but you'll have to do this 6 times on one tatami, okay, to pass. And then over here is where we store, when the students come, this is where they put their swords. We have a couple backup areas as well, but for the most part, this is where the students will come, store their swords before class, and then when we bow in, the students will come and get their swords. Here, we have the yumi, and this is a traditional Japanese bow.
It's so big, I have to back the camera up.
Yes, these are about 6.5, 7 feet tall, depending on the user. So this is my wife's bow here, and you can see my bow is a little taller, so the bow is detailed to the user based on your height, based on your strength. Not all the bows are the same pull strength. Also, the arrows are of different size as well, and different stiffness. So you can see this is one of my wife's arrows here for her draw length, and this is one of mine. By the way, this is the only Kyu dojo in the state of Florida. There aren't any other traditional Japanese archery dojos in the state. There's only 3 others in the country. One of them is in Washington, and the other 2 are North and South Carolina, respectively. So, if you want to see what a traditional Kyu dojo looks like in Florida, here it is. So, yeah, and you can see what we do here. So So down here, you'll see that there's a dot on the floor. You probably just look at that. So this dot on the ground represents where the arches line up. This wall slides open. The archers line up here, what's called the shy line, and they shoot towards a target, which is called a matto. That building, that structure there is called a matoba. It's actually missing a roof. It's going to have an A-frame roof, and this area on the side, on the right side, little structure there is going to be where you go in and you clean the arrows. The arrow cleaning room and the matto storage area. So this area right here is the kamigana and the tokonoma. This is where all the students will come in. This area is called shomen, also the shomen part of the dojo, which is the front part of the dojo. This is where we would bow. This is paying respect to the kami. It's also paying respect to our Budo forefathers, those who allowed us to continue to train to today. This is the area in which we would put our flower arrangement and some other pretty things. This is a scroll done by a good friend of ours in North Carolina. And it says Shawa Jino Michi Nari, which says that there is truth and goodness and unity in you. So, behind this secret door here, you'll see that we have our traditional Japanese tea room. Again, there's a tokonoma here, and this means mu, which is emptiness, okay? And here's a traditional tatami space. So this floor, what you see, is also tatami, and this is exactly what we would cut once it's used. This area right here is a tea room entrance door, where the students will come in, basically kneel and pull themselves in to take up space. So this would be space for 4 students and the tea server, the tea master. Yeah, so you can see it's a fairly small room. It's meant to be small. It's only about 6.5 tatami, but it's meant to have no distractions, only fellowship with the person serving the tea and the tea ceremony itself, and the fellowship that happens in this space.
Okay, Chelsey, you gonna bring it all home for us
Bring it
now?
all home. Well, I'm gonna set you loose on our 20 acres to make some art. It's a perfect place to come, and
Then you can go Easter egg.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You can go out and walk the woods and find out what we did.
That's right. That would be awesome. I will hunt for your work. But thank you for joining us here at Arching Oaks, and I hope that if anybody out there is interested in learning more about what we do here, we have a website, www.Kashimon Dojo. It's KASHIMON Dojo, DOJO.com, and you can keep up with all of our events on Facebook as well. So thank you guys for coming out. It's been fun.
It has been fun.
We love to share this place with people. That's what it's here for. So thank you so much.
Thank you.